Are floodgates the biggest issue in Yu-Gi-Oh? Today, we're going to find out. We're going to be reacting to the CaliEffect, why everyone hates floodgates in Yu-Gi-Oh! Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with many YouTube channels. Let's react to this video together, guys. Please show the creators some love in the pinned comment description down below. Let's hear them out.
Floodgates have finally hit the tipping point. They were a huge issue in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! But now that the cat's out of the bag and floodgates have been decided to be a big issue, are they the problem?
Okay, so hang on. I'm just somebody, if you happen to be new to the channel, I'm somebody who's been returning to the game. Why is it all of a sudden people hate floodgates in Yu-Gi-Oh? I always thought it was a problem. I've always hated it, and it makes sense to dislike floodgates. Is it something that just popped up recently? Did someone in notoriety talk about it?
Or are they a symptom of the current Yu-Gi-Oh card game? In case you guys didn't know, hi, I'm your professor, TheCaliEffect, and today we're going to be talking about why everyone hates floodgates in Yu-Gi-Oh!
And TheCaliEffect makes some good videos, guys. I've been binging the channel since I found him, and we've made, I believe, one reaction video to him before. I really enjoy it. It's like laid back, nice, easy to digest commentary.
Now, of course, for my Slifer Slackers, my Breeding Raws, and my Outstanding Obelisk, I want you guys to post down below your thoughts on floodgates, and of course, watch.
I think they're bad. I think they're horrible. I think it's one of the biggest reasons why the modern game isn't as fun as it used to be. I'm somebody who prefers somewhere around the hat format. I stopped playing the game around the Pendulum and Link era.
Entire video before you make your comment. And I mean the entire video, class. You acting like I can't tell who watches it. I'm getting my ruler next time.
Oh.
Let's go ahead.
All right.
Jump on it.
Oh, we got the king of games here. All right.
What's y'all, big dogs? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh!
All right, here's a little bit of an issue, is because we have to pause the video and give commentary throughout to be able to use this and consider it to be transformative content. It's a little bit of a long intro, and I don't know how I'm supposed to navigate that exactly, but I'm sure he's gonna get into it in just a moment. I like to have authentic reactions, so I have not personally seen this video yet.
Hope that your day phenomenal. But if
good day.
Don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. So
honestly, that's some pretty solid advice. I find myself agreeing with that, man.
Yu-Gi-Oh does have a big issue right now with floodgates. But before we can talk about those issues and everything stemming from it, we'll need to define for the glue eaters in the back, the Slifer Slackers. What is
the glue eaters? Hey, you hear that, Slifer Slackers? You bunch of glue eaters.
Exactly is a floodgate and the history of floodgates with Konami.
It's been a big problem for a very, very long time. I mean, for a long time, I'm talking in like modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, if we're looking at things like skill drain, then it's not a problem.
Floodgates can loosely be defined as a group of cards that restrict a player from doing an action for an extended period of time.
So back in the day, with things like skill drain, with things like there can only be one, it was easy to stop these types of things. You could have something like MST. And it wasn't game breaking. It wasn't, this can't be destroyed by this can't be destroyed by that. And because I have this card means you can't play this. Like, it just took it to the point where your opponent literally can't play the game, not restricting them from doing one simple thing. Or something like, I liked when Herald of Perfection was a thing, that archetype, because there was a way to get around it, and it still took strategy within the game. You had to consider a different strategy to get around something like skill drain.
So no, goofball, Solemn Warning is not a floodgate. But cards like Vanity's Emptiness and Royal Oppressions are perfect examples of floodgates that are very restrictive.
Now, the Royal Oppression's kind of teetering the line there, because that's tough. No, I disagree, because it is another easy card to get rid of. You just have to make sure you're equipped to handle it.
In fact, if you're probably looking at these two cards from a modern lens, you would see why they're banned. But what if I were to tell you—
Wait, they're banned now? Both those cards? I didn't know that. Huh.
Cards were absolutely useless for quite some time. The crazy thing about this is that it took Vanity's Emptiness roughly 5 years to be banned, and Royal Oppression 8 years for us to finally be liberated from a card like this.
You know what's funny is Vanity's Emptiness was such a good card, and nobody figured it out until it saw high level play. I remember that, and I literally remember thinking like, oh my god, nobody used to play this card. What the hell? It ended up being really good, eh?
But that brings one of the more interesting questions surrounding this video. Why weren't these cards that obviously look so powerful banned sooner? Well, if we go back to when these cards were first released, they simply were not good. Special summoning wasn't really prevalent or very necessary in the highest stages of the game.
Now, I don't know what year Vanity's Emptiness ended up coming out in, but like like it just makes sense if you're talking about like literally the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh! I was talking like nobody ended up using it in a special summoning era.
You could even say that the game grew into these restrictions being prohibitive and then eventually bad for the game. In fact, you can actually see that point time after time again, and that brings us to the very first problem and point of this video. Konami makes these Floodgate Yu-Gi-Oh cards that are initially harmless until the game is accelerated enough for them to matter.
Interesting. Okay, so skill drain and summon limit. I don't know, man. Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess that makes sense. It's just like, for these particular cards, I don't really have too much of a problem with. It's like, once you start getting into the modern decks with, like, you know, combining it with the issues of the game today. You know what I mean? These weren't problems when I loved the game. That's the thing, but I guess he makes a good point.
Like Summon Limit and Skill Drain are perfect examples because these cards are 20 years and 15 years old respectively.
Wow, eh?
Both of these cards always had the vitality of being bad and great, but what took them over the map is that a strategy was eventually introduced to take advantage of the card with no drawback.
I see, okay. You know what's funny is I know it's I know it's easy to say in hindsight, right? But I'm telling you the truth right now. I have no reason to lie about this. I was somebody who saw the potential in Summon Limit before it was popular.
For example, in the 15 and 20 years of these cards' existence, there have been tons of special summon and effect heavy formats. But the problem with that is these cards also restricted the player using them under those circumstances. But the problem is that these Floodgate Yu-Gi-Oh cards also forced you to abide by their restrictions. Now, there were always decks that were centered around these particular cards to try to maximize their effort, but they would fall flat on their face.
I was a big fan of Dark World, not gonna lie. I loved my skill drain in Dark World. I always used that. But again, it's to the point where the game wasn't, I guess, like as Callie said, it wasn't advanced enough where it was a big deal because people could just easily get rid of my skill drain.
At least until one of the best decks in the game takes advantage of these cards, like Snake Eyes, a strategy that is special summon heavy and effect heavy, but since how the Snake Eyes cards are worded, you can actually send these cards like Skill Drain and Summon Limit to the graveyard when these cards would try to impose the same restrictions on you. And the same can be said for cards like Vanity's Emptiness.
Now, I'm not familiar with the Snake Eyes card. Again, I'm somebody who's been getting back into the game. Something I hate about this game, and I always have, is those like little teeny words like targeting. It has to specify target, even though I'm using something that's clearly targeting at a card. As if it doesn't say the word target, then it's not targeting. I hate that stuff.
A powerful deck like Fort that doesn't use the graveyard, which bypasses Vanity's Emptiness's weaknesses, and also is a tribute summon heavy meta deck, is the main reason why Vanity's Emptiness had to be addressed on the ban list. The crazy thing about this is that when you look at every single current Floodgate on the ban list, the reason why they're even on the ban list is because a powerful Yu-Gi-Oh deck took advantage of it without having to pay the drawbacks.
You know what's interesting that I haven't thought about until like this very second? I wonder how it would go if you had some sort of ban list or some sort of like extra tier to the ban list where you have like, okay, so if you have 3 cliports, whatever, if you have 2 copies of this in your deck, if you have this, and this, your deck meets all these conditions, then you cannot use Vanity's Emptiness. But if you only have like 1 copy of something, then you can use Vanity's Emptiness. I know it's very, very vague, but you get my point. I think that'd be pretty interesting.
This means that by design, Floodgates are not only flawed, they're always going to be a problem in future years. If the initial design for Floodgates was to slow down some of the stronger decks to allow some of the weaker decks to thrive, then Konami has failed at that task miserably. Because not only do those decks fail to make routine appearances, eventually those particular cards become a part of the best decks in the room, which makes the game very oppressive. It actually has the opposite effect by pushing the higher tiered Yu-Gi-Oh decks into a stronger sense of relevancy while also...
Isn't it funny how that works? I don't know, like... The problem is I don't know how to fix at this point. And this is the problem with the modern game too. I don't know how to fix a lot of this at this point.
Preventing players from playing some of their favorite strategies. And if you go back and look at some of the worst formats that Yu-Gi-Oh has ever had, they're normally centered around a very powerful Yu-Gi-Oh strategy having access to a floodgate that other strategies can't beat.
Interesting. I would need to go back and look at that. I can't really think of it at the moment, but I'm obviously he's probably telling the truth. It's just I never really thought of it that way.
But it's not to say that these cards couldn't have even been oppressive on release. The feeling of playing against Floodgates is another huge reason why everyone hates them.
Yes.
These cards may feel really rewarding to play because your deck may be centered around it.
I disagree with that, to be honest with you. I disagree with that. Like, it's one thing to have, like, something that's consistently, you know, negating stuff. That's different, but isn't even that considered a floodgate? You get my point. I wouldn't have fun if my deck didn't allow my opponent to play the game. what I love about it and what made me fall in love with this game is the strategy, the back and forth, the ups and downs for each player, having to make different strategies as you go. I wouldn't have fun, and as people, you hear people say like Yu-Gi-Oh! Solitaire. I don't have fun doing that. And I don't know if other people feel the same way.
It would be terrible to play against if your deck can't play under those restrictions. On another note, it actually becomes even worse if your opponent can play under the restrictions of a Floodgate Yu-Gi-Oh! Card. Because a lot of those type of strategies that were built around the Floodgate or hinged around that Floodgate, it becomes incredibly unfun for you to play if your opponent can play. Though through all of this, I think I can see the actual purpose. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an incredibly hard game to play and master, with the entry point to learning this game being incredibly high, giving beginner players more friendly cards to help them work against more experienced players seemed to be the thought process.
Oh, I never really thought of it that way, to be honest with you. I thought it was just like a card to add strategy, but that makes a ton of sense. But that's not even going to help. This game's so complicated. How could anybody that's new to the game actually get involved?
Also with the thought in mind that these cards were designed to restrict both players, meaning that if you want to incorporate it in your deck, you're going to have to use your brain to center these cards around. It also could spark the creative deck building side.
That's what I miss. We don't see the creative builds anymore. We don't see anybody using their brain, and it's just combo, 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 combo. This card leads into this, and you can't destroy this. This card leads into this, and then because of that, I get this. And you could argue that memory is brain power, but the strategy and love for the game that I had is no longer there, man.
But if you heard what I was saying a little bit earlier, that's exactly the opposite of what happens. These cards aren't fun to play against if you are a more skilled player, losing simply because of card effect and nothing else. And also the strategies centered around these cards aren't really conducive to healthy deck building decisions. By design, this Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game is made by having multiple interactions through both players through both turns.
And that's why I would imagine you agree with this. That's why you agree with me on this. Or I would imagine most people would agree with me on this. This is the type of thing that made us all fall in love with the game. I don't understand how people could play this game at the difficulty level that it's at, and you consistently play the solitaire game. And I have no disrespect, and I have no ill will towards anybody who loves the modern game as is. I just don't get it. I don't get it. It's not the same.
It's what makes Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! You activated my trap card is literally the summative of what this game is supposed to be about.
And now, hang on, does anybody use trap cards anymore? I know there was a big phase where nobody used trap cards, but I don't know if that's changed since then.
Activated my card effect that doesn't allow you to activate any other card effects in return. It seems really odd that Konami does have these blanket card effects in place, but with the original thought process in mind that these cards could be used to stop the top Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks.
Did they say that, like that was the goal, is to help people get into the game a lot easier? Because if that's the case, that makes sense, and I've never even thought about it that way. But I also didn't think it wasn't a problem to add these cards back in the day. Now it is.
Provides a feeling where at worst, it feels like you lose to a particular card just because it exists, or the player uses the card and doesn't get the satisfaction because it simply didn't work. The duality could be possible in other card games, but in this one, it doesn't really fit the bill. Currently in Yu-Gi-Oh! We've reached an apex point, with cards like Drolden Lockbird, as well as Lancia being the talk of the
Now those ones I am familiar with. Okay. So is this what kind of brought the entire conversation to light recently? Because I don't know what he was talking about at the beginning of the video, saying this, like, everybody's talking about Floodgates right now. I don't know. Maybe just, I think someone like with notoriety ended up talking about it. I'm not sure.
In Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, it's become a point in Yu-Gi-Oh! When these cards have literally skipped players' turns at the highest level of events, where you still are technically getting that feel of you've activated my trap card, but this particular situation is turn-ending, unexciting, unexpiring. And more importantly, it's doing way more harm than good.
And it's a lot easier to do that. For example, something that I loved playing with back in the day is the Arcana Force. I don't remember what number it was, but the world where you had to work extremely, extremely hard to skip your opponent's turn. That was like a one-off boss monster type thing. Now it's a common thing to see.
The Yu-Gi-Oh! Game. Now, the last point I would like to drive home on why everyone hates Floodgates is a big one, because this one opens up Pandora's box. Are Floodgates the actual problem, or is current Yu-Gi-Oh! The actual problem?
I'm more on the side, and I'm open to be proven wrong about this in the comments, because again, I'm somebody who's been getting back into the game, so I don't think my mind is exactly the proper one to speak on this. From an outside perspective, from my perspective and my limited knowledge, I believe it's the modern Yu-Gi-Oh issue, because these weren't an issue back in the day. Very, very few cards were.
You see, like I said in the beginning of this video, Floodgates will eventually become a problem the longer Konami makes decks. Well, that actually has two problems with it. Konami will willingly make a Floodgate card that isn't good, but then eventually they will make a strategy to make that card completely bonkers. In hindsight, giving Floodgate Yu-Gi-Oh cards no lingering effects or harsher restrictions for the player using the card was a complete mistake.
I think the big thing is just consistently making cards more and more powerful, decks more and more powerful, making the turns play longer and longer.
To continue to make Floodgates and then make Yu-Gi-Oh strategies that center around these Floodgates is even a bigger mistake. And at this point in time, it does raise the hugest question in this video.
Before he says that, I agree with that. That's a horrible idea if you take a Floodgate card or a group of Floodgate cards and then you build an archetype where you take advantage of that. And I get that you make it so powerful that you sell it no matter what, and then you can ban it afterwards. It's been the story of Yu-Gi-Oh! Since the dawn of time, guys. They make something absolutely busted, everybody buys it, they make their money, they ban it, and they move on to the next busted thing.
While Floodgates may be hated because of their restrictive effects, because them being a problem in the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh!, them requiring little deck building skill or skill to play whatsoever, is it simply because Konami has sped up Yu-Gi-Oh! So fast that these cards matter. I want you guys to keep in mind, there was a point in time where everyone hated Maxi, and I made a video about it, but in the
yeah. Oh, and it's on the other side of my screen over here. I guess the video's coming to a close, but I remember that. I personally didn't like Maxi, but it wasn't like the end of the world, and that's why I think, like, because I look back at these cards, I look back at Skill Drain, I look back at Vanity's Emptiness, I look back at Maxi, any Floodgate that you can think of that was a problem back in things like Edison format and things like Hat format a little bit before that, they weren't like that big of an issue just every once in a while. Now they're just flat out giant issues no matter what.
That Maxi came out, there were times where the card was completely useless. And the exact same thing could be said about every single Floodgate that I mentioned in this video.
When was Maxi useless? Maybe I'm not remembering that, but I thought it always had it was always a pretty good card to keep.
Now, of course, class, if you like these type of videos, they're really, really fun to make. I'm actually going to need you guys' help. The Maxi video that I made a little bit earlier didn't do as well as I expected, and these videos can be hit or miss. With us,
I guess he's going to be done talking about Floodgates there, but please go check out the Maxi video. Go check him out, and honestly, it'll be in the pinned comment description down below the channel. If you're watching this tiny channel over here, I would imagine that you know one of the bigger YouTubers in the space, that being TheCaliEffect. I've recently found him, and I've been really enjoying his content. So again, show him some love in the pinned comment description down below. What do you think about Floodgates? Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested, I made a video a while ago on the dumbest rules in Yu-Gi-Oh! History, and I would love to have you check out that video because I have a lot I want to say. Take care, everybody. Thanks for coming.